Kevin Kline once said, "I've never really been satisfied with myself." The line sounds ordinary until you remember it comes from an artist who holds an Academy Award, 3 Tony Awards, and a reputation as a living treasure of the American stage. In that light, the remark becomes a piercing question. If someone of such stature still doubts himself, what lies behind the glowing halo of success? Born in St. Louis into a home steeped in music and discipline, Kline did not arrive in the arts as a confident prodigy. He entered as a man guided by a heart full of doubt. That fragility became his quiet compass, shaping a career that moved from intense training at Juilliard to Shakespearean performances so vivid they seemed to breathe. His journey was not merely one of talent, but of a persistent search for balance between art, fame, and a private life of simple, protected beauty. A family of music and emotion. Kevin Kline grew up in a home where classical music was not an interest, but the very air the family breathed. His father, Robert Joseph Kline, ran a record store and had once studied opera in New York. He didn't teach his children through speeches or lessons. He led by example, allowing music to seep into their lives naturally. His mother, Peggy Kirk Kline, was dramatic and emotionally rich, an artist in temperament if not in profession. The blend of strict musical discipline from his father and the softer emotional current from his mother created a unique environment, orderly yet deeply expressive. Kevin, along with his sister Kate and brothers Alexander and Christopher, was raised in an Irish Catholic household despite his father's Jewish roots. This cultural fusion gave him a childhood full of imaginative texture, but also a sense of identity that was never entirely fixed, planting early seeds of curiosity and doubt. The first spark on stage. At school, Kevin was not a model student. He was bright, but often undisciplined, and he once received a particularly poor science evaluation. Yet what lingered most vividly in the memories of his teachers was his presence on stage. In Latin and Shakespeare productions, especially in the comedy The Haunted House, Kevin revealed something difficult to define: a natural theatrical rhythm, a grace of movement, and an inner spark that seemed to belong to the stage. At that time, his official path still appeared to be music. He began piano at 7, played clarinet in the school orchestra, and spent years practicing as though his future were locked within musical keys. When he applied to Indiana University, he chose composition and conducting, entering one of the nation's most prestigious music programs, convinced that music was his destiny. The turning point, discovering the stage from behind it. Indiana University offered a quiet turning point that would alter his life. To support himself, Kevin took any job available in the opera department, gluing beards onto singers, helping with makeup, repairing costumes, hauling props, and watching performances from behind the wings. He listened to opera countless times, observing how performers transformed under the lights. He later said that he began to understand the stage from behind it. At the same time, he co-founded the Vest Pocket Players, a student theater group. Each time he stepped on stage, he felt more alive than music ever made him feel. The rush before an entrance, the heat of the lights, the audience's laughter, all of it began to drown out his musical ambitions. By his junior year, he made a quiet decision. He switched fully to drama. It was the first step toward a life he hadn't expected but couldn't deny. Juilliard, a rebirth of art and doubt. In 1970, Kevin entered Juilliard on a prestigious scholarship, leaving the freedom of Indiana behind for a world of intense discipline. Juilliard's drama division was like a laboratory where every method was tested and every student was forced to start again from the ground up. Voices were reshaped, bodies forged into instruments of expression, psyches opened and closed again according to each role. Days stretched so long that morning and night became indistinguishable. Kevin later described the experience as a complete rebirth, not an exaggeration. Each day was a struggle between faith in his ability and doubt in himself, a silent battle that never ceased. But within this pressure, he discovered strength, technical precision, and a romantic freedom that emerges only when one is pushed to the edge. Juilliard was also where he met lifelong collaborators like Patti LuPone, shaping his artistic world for decades. The acting company. Touring, hard work, and shaping a voice. In 1972, John Houseman founded the acting company to prevent Juilliard graduates from dissolving into uncertain careers. Kevin, barely in his 20s, became a central member. The next 4 years were a grueling adventure, a new city every week, performing Shakespeare, Chekhov, and Shaw in grand theaters and remote schools. The pace was exhausting, but it became a furnace that forged him. He learned to sustain breath through endless scenes, project to thousands, and shift from tragedy to comedy in hours. The road demanded endurance and created the serious, romantic bearing that defined his later career. By 1976, he was no longer a young graduate, but an artist tempered by hundreds of performances and countless roles. Leaving the company meant stepping into uncertainty, but it also meant the beginning of his independent journey toward Broadway and beyond. Broadway's first awakening. From roles to star, Kevin's Broadway breakthrough came not through a small role, but through a decisive triumph. In The Robber Bridegroom, he became a revelation, mischievous yet precise, playful yet razor-sharp. Critics were surprised by his presence, and the performance earned him a Drama Desk Award. It wasn't just recognition, it was a declaration that Kevin Kline had arrived. He was no longer the former Juilliard student or the acting company actor. He was Kevin Kline, a new voice shaping the Broadway landscape. From that moment, the stage began to feel like a place he belonged to, not just as a performer, but as a force. The momentum continued with his early Broadway appearances, and the theater world began to realize they were witnessing a rare talent. Cinema's new language, Sophie's Choice, and the Oscar. In 1982, Kevin took a major step into film with Sophie's Choice. Working opposite Meryl Streep, he entered a world where every expression is magnified by the camera. For an actor trained for the stage, the challenge was real. He learned restraint, how to speak with his eyes, how to carry inner weight without the breadth of a theater. The film proved he could cross into cinema with maturity and depth. Yet he continued returning to Shakespeare, playing Richard III, Henry V, and Hamlet in the following years. Then, in 1988, he stunned the world as Otto in A Fish Called Wanda. His comic timing, theatrical instincts, and fearless performance earned him the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. This win was rare. Comedy is often overlooked by the Academy, and it confirmed what audiences already knew. Kevin was not confined to any genre. The Fall, The Return, and The Life Beyond the Stage. In 1999, Wild Wild West became a major failure. The film was savaged by critics, and Kevin's confidence in Hollywood wavered. Yet his response was not to chase attention or defend himself loudly. He stepped back, became selective, and returned to the values that shaped him. This failure forced him to confront an old question. Where did he truly belong in a world that constantly demanded more? The answer came in his own terms. He continued acting, but with discipline and caution. The next decade brought two major honors: induction into the American Theater Hall of Fame in 2003 and a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2004. These awards confirmed what he had built over decades, an artist respected in both worlds. In 2017, he returned to Broadway and won his third Tony, proving that age had only deepened his craft. The legacy of a man who chose art and peace. Kevin Kline's legacy goes beyond awards and famous roles. It is the story of an artist who never lost himself to fame, who maintained discipline and authenticity across more than 50 years of work. His performances always carry a calm intensity, a quiet depth born from a life of balance. He has proven, that a career can expand in depth rather than breadth, choosing fewer roles but ones of greater meaning. In recent years, he has appeared less often, but each time he returns, his presence feels like a rare gift. He lives quietly in New York, walking the streets without fanfare, and still brings the same clarity to every role. His story reminds us that true greatness does not always need the spotlight. Sometimes, it thrives in the quiet spaces between applause and home.